All right, Pat, it wasn't as easy as a 3-0 finish as we had on Saturday, but the Canes scored 3. They needed 3. They ended up getting the win, and now they head to Philly up 2-0. The Cardiac Canes are absolutely back. I'm Chris Lee as Pat Welter. Boy, what a game here from Lenovo Center.
You knew it was going to be easy, right? I mean, the regular season matchups, all of them went to overtime and shootouts, and we got that here. And a game that just did not start well for Carolina.
No.
The Flyers scored 2 goals on their first 3 shots in the first 4 minutes of the game.
Yeah, I mean, those 2 goals were 39 seconds apart.
And I don't want to take anything away from Freddie Anderson in those situations because one was on the power play. It's a lot of traffic in the slot, and Drysdale's able to bury it. Then the other one, puck's behind the net, and it kind of just gets stuffed in on him. It's just a bad start.
Yeah.
And, we were talking in the press box during the game. Canes were just a little bit out of sorts because the Flyers were taking away a lot of time and space tonight. And I think Logan Stakeoven felt that.
For sure.
I think the whole team felt that. The Flyers, I think the word you've used was scrappy, and they showed that in this one. But again, the Canes persevere.
Yeah, it was one of those games where, like, if you go back, if you look at the Canes, you're lucky that you came away with that win. It wasn't your best. It felt like the puck was bouncing off of the sticks. Nobody could really quite handle things. There were so many point-blank opportunities from Logan Stankover, from Jordan Stahl and others that just didn't go, or maybe folks fanned on shots. It felt like Keandre Miller wasn't as sharp as he could have been. There's a couple times where he lost the puck and it'll trickle out of the zone as the Canes are trying to build up some momentum, and then they have to kind of start everything all over. And so it was just one of those games where it's like, in your mind, is this going to happen? Are they going to drop their first game of the Stanley Cup playoffs at home,
right?
A place where they are so amazing for the last 8 years playing in the playoffs. And it just kind of came up to that third period and also overtime. I would say overtime, Philly actually was probably the better team. They were getting a lot more shots on goal, but when it needed to happen the most, Taylor Hall, part of that second line that we keep talking about, how amazing they've been. He was amazing once again, and he gets the game winner.
Hey, when in doubt, get pucks on the net.
Yes.
And that goal was not a flashy goal. That was just everybody crashing because there was a minute in overtime left, and Taylor Hall, who's really been kind of more of a point man so far in the playoffs, setting up Jackson Blake and Logan Stakeoven for large parts. I was thinking, it reminded me of Sidney Crosby a little bit out there, the way he's been playing, just kind of setting guys up, or, Sebastian Aho to compare him to a Kane. So it was great to see him score. But the other goals, Chris, and this is something that we haven't seen in maybe playoffs past, real finishes, great finishing. And it's from some of the highest skilled players on the team.
Yes.
And, you mentioned that second line, but in this one, it's Ehlers, who's not technically on the first line, but he's their most high-profile addition in the offseason. Basically a 30-goal scorer. He gets the first one on a brilliant pass from Jackson Blake on the power play. And then it's Seth Jarvis in the third period who ties it with just an incredible wrister. And again, it's Ehlers who gets the puck into the zone and sets up the play, and Jarvis is able to finish it. A guy who's been hearing the criticism. I mean, how many more times can we ask these guys in the locker room, hey, when's that top-line production going to come through? And Jarvis does it right there.
You can't ask Logan Stankoven to score in every single game. He can't also start off scoring for you in every single game, which is what happened 4 to 5 times before this particular game tonight. So what you're saying, great point right there. Nikolai Ehlers coming through. I mean, that was such a skilled shot for him in the first. And then, of course, with Seth Jarvis coming through in the third period, the Canes absolutely needed all of that. But also just going to Freddie Anderson, right? 2 of the first 3 shots that Philly takes goes into the net. And he's just so unflappable in these situations. I think, has more starts as in the playoffs, in the playoffs, I guess, as a goalie, than I think every goalie in the Eastern Conference right now combined.
Wow.
Now. So it's like you saw just how unflappable he really is, because he's the most tenured goaltender right now in the Eastern Conference. And so you saw that in the second, third, and I was going to say fourth periods, but second, third, and overtime periods, basically the fourth period, because it was almost an entire 20 minutes. And he was absolutely standing on his head there, 34 saves. And that's a part of the recipe for the Canes to get the win. And it was big for him.
There were so many key saves from Freddie. And talking to, one of the press conferences we did with Rod Brindamore last couple of days, I was asking him about the defense this season and this postseason, what might be the difference is. And one of the things he pointed to was the goaltending. Like, the defense looks good because of the goaltending. The offense looks good because of the goaltending. Like, it is so key in the playoffs. And a game, there's only 5 goals scored. 2 more of those go in for Philly, they win the game. And, Freddie hasn't been bad in postseasons past. It's just been he's run into a better goalie. Igor Shesterkin or Sergei Bobrovsky and the Panthers and the Rangers goaltenders. But so far in the playoffs, I know after the first round, statistically, Freddie, I believe, was first in save percentage, and I haven't checked right now, but he might be still right now. And just going back to that decision Rod made to go with him in the postseason to begin with.
For sure.
Now, I felt like, hey, it was Bussy's season. He drove you here. He's the magical story. Do you give him the first go? But that's why I'm not the coach of the Hurricanes.
Yeah.
Rod goes with the vet who had his worst statistical season of his career this season. But in some weird ways, it kind of all worked out. Where he didn't play as much. They rode the hot hand with Bussy. They gave Freddie some rest. He probably had some just kind of, I think the records are so lopsided in the regular season between Bussy and Freddie. Some of that is probably just puck luck variance, right? Yeah. But Freddie was playing better down the stretch, and he was huge again here tonight.
Speaking of coaching decisions, Philly coming into this game changed up their line a lot. They changed up who was there. Zegras was their top line center. He moves over as a winger. It felt like it kind of freed him up a little bit, and that may have been why they started the game the way they did. Starting in the third period, you saw Rod Brindamore switch things up a little bit, move Martinook to that top line, move some folks around, and all of a sudden you start seeing a new energy kind of being injected with the Canes. And I think that's where Seth Jarvis's goal kind of comes from, is all that new energy, some new line combinations that we hadn't seen so far. And, credit to, the coach, making all the right moves at the right times to make sure that his team got the right energy, and that's what ended up happening, and they end up getting that big-time win.
I got my guy over here from ESPN who's patiently waiting. If you want to come back here and do some work while we're talking, we're doing a podcast. We're going to be a minute.
Yeah, go for it.
So you're fine. This isn't TV. It's casual. We're breaking the fifth wall. It's all good. We're all here working together. I guess while we're talking about behind the scenes, gosh, you talked about the cardiac Canes. This was crazy from a logistical standpoint for us to get on air tonight. It's never a dull moment in this stadium and with this team. And you just can't say enough about the character of this group on the whole. Like, how many different pieces have to come together for a victory? And we've mentioned a lot of them already. And you mentioned the puck going off of Keandre Miller's stick a few times, but I also want to give a shout out to some huge plays he made.
Oh, for sure.
He had the save of the game in game 1, and his stick, he's almost like a little bit of another Jacob Slavin out there with his size, the length of his stick, and he's, not taking anything away from Slavin, he's more athletic. Rod said it the other day, athleticism was the word he used. At one point, he jumped up into the air and grabbed the puck and threw it down.
Like Jordan up there.
Yeah, he did. and then in overtime, right over here against these boards, he purposely drops his stick to then pin a Flyers player against the board. It was just really cool to just kind of watch the little things that you see when you're here that you don't necessarily see on TV. Who's another guy I want to shout out? Sean Walker, who almost won it. He had this incredible drive to the net, and he's kind of an offensive defenseman. And I imagine he's probably played forward at some point in his life. And I thought it was Stankoven or Ehlers. Yeah. And I had to look back, and I'm like, no, that was Sean Walker driving into the net. Pretty impressive.
Something small that I noticed as well as the Canes were starting the overtime period, you had they almost started it as if it was going to be a regular season overtime period. Had 3 guys out there. I think that was Rod just kind of looking at, what are the Flyers going to put out there? He saw what they put out there. Stahl was actually out there, of course, to take the face off. And then he saw what it was, and he sends out Ehlers, and then he also sends out Jarvis. And that's how he starts I believe it was Jarvis. It was Ehlers and Jarvis, I believe. And that's how they start the overtime period. And you could just see the puppet strings being pulled. Interesting that this series starts the same way the last series started. Starts with a shutout. Then you have the second game as an overtime game, and the Canes are able to kind of pull it out. The only difference is they were down in this game. They were never down before in that first series. But now they have all the momentum. They go into Philly with not a lot of pressure on their backs. All the pressure now is on Philly.
You can't go down 3-0.
You can't go down 3-0, and it's not like their home is a sacred place, because I think they lost a couple times to Pittsburgh in Philly in that last series. They also won on the road themselves, which is why they ended up winning the series. But that place, you can win there, and the Canes have won there this season. So it's going to be interesting to see how all of that kind of shapes up, how the Canes got to come out of this game with health. I was kind of wondering what Seth Jarvis was looking like after that goal. He answered all of my questions.
And he had the assist in game 1 to Logan Stankoven. That was completely set up by him. So whether everyone's dealing with something, but his skill is clearly there. I mean, maybe there's a slight lack of pop to him when you watch him, but the shot is there. And ultimately, that's what matters, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And he got the shot when it was needed. And, hey, you just got to felt like this was going to be the day he was going to do it, because his buddies from Canada were in attendance. They rang the siren before the game. It was just a great – and to see that shot of them. I don't know if they showed it on television, but the shot of his buddies going crazy once he scored that goal, it was amazing to see.
Yeah, I've interviewed them a couple times. They're great guys. They kind of remind me of me and my college buddies, just like they're like 10 years younger. And, they're the guys you want to hang out with, you want to root for, and it's why Jarvis is so endearing, because even though he's in the NHL, becoming a star, he keeps it grounded with his boys from Winnipeg, his brother Caden, who was here tonight. I believe his mother was here as well. Saw her as we were running out here. I gave a little shout out to them, just like saying hi, congrats, Jarvis scores. So yeah, this is just a likable team, man. I really like this group as people, and I really like just the makeup top to bottom. One other point I wanted to make, just because I never really seen it before, was I think it was Stankoven crashed into the net. It must have been the end of the third period, because it was down at this end. Vladar just starts, for lack of a better word, like spanking him with his paddle. And
I think it was at that end over there.
Stankoven gets a penalty for goaltender interference. A, he was pushed in, but B, Vladar got slashing from a goalie, which you don't often see. And man, I bring that up because it's funny, but B, you bring it up because special teams, 13 power plays in this game. 7-6, 1 power play goal each, and the PK for Carolina, it's like you're not even nervous when they go on the PK now.
You're almost more nervous for the other team, because it's like a lot of times it's more likely they'll score the shorthanded goal than give up a goal on their end. And you know what? I think there's a few times in the Stankoven situation you bring it up. It reminds me of some of the things that Rod Brind'Amour has been saying, that in the playoffs, you probably need to go review every penalty just to look at it. You can look at it really quick and see what's there, what's not there. There's a couple of calls to me.
It was the Svetch high stick, right?
That ended up being a real high stick.
Did, but in the moment, you could have let it go, though,
You could have let that go, but you had that situation. But also, like, go to the first game where Jordan Martinook gets his own stick caught behind him, and Sealers takes it, hits himself in the face with it.
That was crazy.
And then Martinook is called for high sticking. It's just like things like that. That could be – you could make sure that those situations aren't happening, that guys aren't in the box when they're not supposed to be in the box. And I can see now Rod Brind'Amour's push. You can go ahead and go under him.
Yeah, like this isn't football, right? This isn't basketball where like a foul is just a free throw or a penalty is 15 yards. It's hockey.
Yeah.
Where a penalty leads to a power play.
It's a man advantage.
You're much more likely to score.
Yes.
So like it's worth so much more. And there's a little bit of that. We've been talking about this. NBA maybe creeping into hockey a little bit, where guys seem to be going to the James Harden, Shea Gilgeous-Alexander school. We're going to yank the cord out the mic. Got hit me in the face. Like who wants to watch that kind of basketball? I don't think anybody wants to watch that kind of hockey. And I think what people love about hockey, as opposed to soccer, opposed to basketball, is dudes don't do that. But,
now they're doing
smart, right? Like you've got to play the game.
Yeah, it's happened a few times here in these playoffs. It's happened in this series, had a couple times in the last series as well. So you got to think that maybe at some point NHL is going to take a look at all of that. But there's been a couple times that, the Canes have been in the box and they shouldn't have been, or if that was to go back and you look at it. There's also a couple times where it's like looked like a Canes player was either hooked or tripped, and nothing is called. But hey, you know.
Yeah, Ehlers like completely decleated mid-ice. I don't know if it was a cleat. He just like looked up and he was like, nothing? Okay, where's my stick? Like,
Yeah.
there's like ice all down his back. Svetch could pay rent in the penalty box. The guy lives there so much.
3 penalties. Yeah, I think that Ehlers situation was a guy, I can't remember which player from the Flyers, kind of turns around, does this number with the stick. He didn't do it on purpose. He didn't know Ehlers was coming, but it happened.
Yeah.
And nothing was called. And there's a couple times guys are being hooked or whatever, but it feels like if the Hurricanes breathe on another player, penalty. Go to the box.
Well, good thing they're the best PK in hockey. I think that's going to do it for us tonight. We're feeling a little loose after OT, but thanks you guys for watching. We're going to do these the rest of the playoffs, and it's going to Philadelphia next. So we're not going to travel to Philadelphia, but we'll be watching the games, reporting from here. I'm excited to keep covering this team, man.
Let's do it. We'll see what the Canes did. Cardiac Canes came out tonight. Cheers.